believe in the gun. And our players don't use it most days. They use it every day.
In my 20 years as head coach, I've used the gun every single year. Well, my dream as a coach that everybody would grow up with the gun, because getting all those reps would make my job a lot easier.
Good afternoon, everybody. This is the NABC Championship Webinar Series. Tom McDonald, I'm on the board of directors, two-year college coach rep. We got Troy Hilton on from the NABC National Office, and he's been a great help. Special thanks to Jim Haney, Reggie Mitten, again, Troy, Eric Weberg, Rick Letty, and everyone else in the National Office for all they do. Special thanks to the Gun for sponsoring this, Sideline Interactive. They're going to give away one board, one table, 8 feet long LED, free shipping, over $11,000 value to someone on the 8th of May. Craig Reed from KBA for all he's done, all the boards, magnetic boards, and the clipboards that he's sent out to coaches who are at home and can't get to their office and get things that they need for their presentations. Mike Bray, past president of the NABC, all the encouragement for the fall clinics. And then like Coach spoke in Las Vegas, and thanks for that, Coach Underwood. And then Jamie Dixon, who is now the current president, and all of his support. And both of them spoke this earlier this month. The board of directors, all their help, social media-wise, encouragement, and their time and effort speaking. Championship Productions, Bill Bergen, Nate Landis, Daryl Bennett. So my first chore is to introduce Brad Underwood from Illinois. He's got a special place in my heart being a junior college coach and his journey. It was interesting. Matt Figger yesterday talked about what a rewarding time that was to be a junior college coach, and how it's made him or put him in a position to be very successful. First, as a player, this is for Coach Underwood. Hardin-Simmons, Independence Community College, and then Kansas State. In Kansas State, 1984 and 86. And then he started his coaching career at Dodge City Community College, Western Illinois as an assistant, Daytona Beach Community College, Kansas State as an assistant, Kansas State 2011 and 12 associate head coach. Then he went to South Carolina in the same position. Then he was at Stephen F. Austin, and I think his numbers there, that's the first time we got involved with Coach Underwood. They were 32 and 3, 25, 29 and 5, 28 and 6. He was 89 and 14. Here's the bigger one, Coach, that still blows my mind. 53 and 1 in the conference, 3 NCAA tournament appearances, and then he went to Oklahoma State for a year, and then he went to Illinois. He's won everywhere he's been. 4 NCAA tournaments. His career record is 157 and 75, 68% winning percentage. Some of the things, last three-time 14, 15, and 16 Southland Conference regular season champ and tournament champ, 2-time coach of the year in the Southland. The one that I always mention and it really sticks out to me and Troy is his commitment to the NABC, 26-year member. It just shows his commitment to this profession. Coach, warmest welcomes and thanks for spending some time with us today.
Well, thank you, Tom. It's always my pleasure, and I'm a big fan of everything that you do and the NABC and everything that we try to do in terms of making our game better, and clinics are a great way to enhance and keep learning, and I'm a big believer in that. I grew up doing that myself, and I don't think we ever stop learning and challenging ourselves in this profession. And the NABC, these championship production clinics are something I'm a big fan of and will always support, because it's I learn as much listening to other people as anybody, and I'm a big fan.
Well, you have always shared your time and your knowledge, but my first question is this: knowing that you've been a junior college coach and a player and your journey, I decided if you could talk about the journey that you've had, people that have been instrumental in your life, what they've done, characteristics they have, how they put you in a position that you're in now. But if you could just talk about your journey a little bit from growing up to where you're at now. It'd be greatly appreciated. And then we got a few more things to ask you.
Absolutely. Well, and I've been very fortunate. I'll start with the fact that I've been very blessed to be around a lot of winning and a lot of very successful coaches along the way. My high school coach is a Hall of Fame coach in the state of Kansas, was very, very successful. I went to Hardin Simmons one year and left there. I really enjoyed going to school there. Left during a coaching change. Played for a guy named Jim Hatfield there for just 1 year, and then went to Independence Junior College and played in at that time a legendary name, Bob Cavisto. Bob was a great player at Kansas, an All-American there, and was very fortunate. Played the national championship game. We lost that year to San Jacinto and a guy named Walter Berry, and then went to Kansas State and played for one of the great coaches of all time in Jack Hartman. And from there, my journey took me back to Hardin Simmons for a year of grad school, and then to Dodge City Community College, where, I'll be very honest, I got a job at just 24 years old. And that time, junior college basketball was really a powerful entity. There weren't prep schools then. I thought I had all the answers and realized that I really didn't have many. And but learned on the fly. I learned how to work. It was invaluable for me because I had to go recruit. I had to put a team together, plan travel, you name it. I learned the business inside and out. And 5 years there, went to Western Illinois for 10 with Jim Kerwin. And, Jim had a very successful junior college career and Division I career as an assistant coach. He was many years with Billy Tubbs at Oklahoma, and didn't get the job when he retired. There was an athletic director change. I did not get the job. I went back to junior college and Daytona Beach, which is now Daytona State, and had 3 fantastic years. Loved living there. It was a great job. And then Bob Huggins came along and brought me back to my alma mater. And he was only there 1 year prior to leaving. He got Frank Martin the job. So I stayed with Frank, and Frank became the all-time winningest coach in the first 5 years of his career at Kansas State. And a story, such a storied program, and legendary coaches from Tex Winter to Cotton Fitzsimmons to Jack Gardner and Lon Kruger and Frank's the winningest coach there, and was back home for me. So that was a fantastic time. And then Frank went to South Carolina, spent a year there with him. And I was very fortunate. Got the Stephen F. Austin job, which was had a terrific tradition, had a lot of success there, and had great staff, great players. Went to the NCAA tournament every year, won a couple of games 1 year. Of course, the NCAA likes putting you with that selection committee. I got matched up against Hugs 1 year. We were fortunate we came out on the right side of that for us. And then it was to Oklahoma State, and spent 1 year there. Thought I would end my career there. Yet I knew how special Illinois was from my time at Western. And at that time, Bill Self, Lon Kruger were coaching at Illinois, and it was powerful. And it's a basketball school. The state is all about basketball, and then it's the Big Ten. And the opportunity came, and I jumped, and we've been on a journey here that's been very, very challenging, very rewarding. It's unfortunate that the 100-year pandemic hit this year. We had a chance. We were a good basketball team, and had taken a lot of steps. We went from 12 wins a year ago to 21 this year. We were a game out of first, and playing in the last week of the season in the Big Ten for a championship was is something that shows great growth, and I'm excited about for the future at Illinois. So I've had an unusual journey, Tom, but it took me 26 years to become a Division I assistant, and but I've been blessed because I've worked with great people.
So there's leads right into my next question is your first year at Daytona Beach, you're 21-9. First year at Stephen F. Austin, you're 32-3. Oklahoma State, you're 20-13. Now at Illinois wasn't, but it was a whole different story. But you're at 21-10. Can you talk about leadership, motivation, culture? How you've been in all those programs, and every time you get them going, and how tough is that to leave one, go to the next, and just building that culture?
Well, every job is different, and everything's got, a lot of times people want to identify, the first 90 days or 100 days on a job. You can really, in my experience, is kind of rip that theory up and throw it in the trash, because every job's got different needs and different issues. And I got the job at Stephen F. Austin, and when I was interviewing for the job, they had 2 scholarships open. A week after I got the job, within the first week, there was 7 because the whole recruiting class asked to transfer. So every job is different, and every opportunity has a different challenge. But my son just knocked over a glass here. But and I think when we got to Oklahoma State, we inherited a team that had some success early, and then had slid a little bit. But we're had different challenges here at Illinois. It was a program that had a drought from the NCAA tournament, and to really understand each job, it takes a little bit of time. I think the one thing that I've never varied from is culture, and I think when you talk about Illinois basketball, in our case now, it's what do you want to stand for? What do you want people to think about you? And we have some simple sayings, everyday guys. We talk about accountability and being responsible and accountable to your teammates. We talk about family a lot. We talk about hard work. I think we want everybody to say at the end of the year, if you polled everybody in our league, who's the hardest playing team in the league, we would hope they would say our program. We also talk a lot about winning off the court to win on the court, and that has a huge academic component to it. So we work very, very hard in establishing our culture. I believe in it. We focus on character over characters, and find that that's a big difference. And I think it's one of the things that's helped us in year 3 make such a big jump in our program here at Illinois.
Coach, my next one, and I'll turn over to Troy. During this pandemic, this COVID-19 time, how are you dealing with your communications with your staff, your players, and your recruits? Or how's recruiting going with this?
Yeah, we've been in a fortunate spot, Tom, and I think everybody's in a little different place. We had, depending on what you want to look at, number 1 or number 2 recruiting class in the Big Ten, and it's a top 15 class nationally, and we had that done early. We have, we're still active in the transfer portal, looking for one maybe. So we're in a good place where we don't need a lot. And we had 2 transfers sitting out. But the important piece for us is we had a lot of our 21 class at our games here in the last month of the regular season. And so we were able to do a lot of Zooms. I didn't know what Zoom was before all of this coronavirus stuff. We do a lot of live Zooms now, almost treat them like an official visit. And that has become very popular for us. Obviously, as we get closer to June 15th, when we can contact 22s, we've started to really break down a lot of film on those young people because there's no spring recruiting for me to go see those kids. And so it's it's a process that's different. Usually we're on the fly going 100 miles an hour this time of year. And now we're sitting at home. It's almost like junior college recruiting where you don't have a budget, you're on the phone and you're watching film and we're working hard at that. And it's a lot of time on the phone and a lot of time on a computer screen.
Troy, go ahead.
I didn't have any questions to begin with, but I just wanted to thank you for spending some time with us and sharing your knowledge with the members that have tuned in to watch.
Well, thanks, Troy. And you guys do an unbelievable job and an unbelievably trying and very difficult and unique time, in our history. Not only are we have some drastic rule changes coming about, but we have a different situation with recruiting and on-campus workouts when nobody's there. So, kudos to the NABC and you and everybody for the great job that they're doing in a very trying time.
Coach, I got two more questions and I'll turn it over to you. One is Coach Huggins, Frank Martin, how did they what kind of responsibilities they give you that put you in a great position to go right to Stephen F. Austin and just skyrocket? That's my first one. What did they do responsibility-wise, prepare you to be a really successful coach?
Well, I think there's a reason why they have both been extremely successful. And both of them have a leadership style that is not anything about micromanaging. They believe in the people that they hire. They believe in their knowledge and understanding of the game, of what their responsibilities are, whether it's recruiting or whether it's director of operations, handling scheduling and equipment and travel. Both of those guys let you do your job. And as a coach, I mean, that you're as involved as an assistant coach as either one of those guys are as a head coach in terms of the activity and practice. I've always said if I did not get the Stephen F. job, I was in an unbelievable place with Frank as associate head coach at South Carolina because of the responsibilities that he was allowing me and affording me as a coach. And, I felt very much a part of it. They both do that at a high level. And I think I do that now. I don't like to micromanage. I don't want to conduct a meeting to see when our next meeting is, so to speak. I want to have fun. Both of them are extremely competitive, as we all are in this profession. And yet they both have a great understanding of family. They have a great understanding of laughter. They're both practical jokers, so you've got to be on your toes all the time. And it made the environment every single day in a very, very competitive world we live in. It made it fun to go to work every day. And I'll never forget those years. I'll never be more appreciative of two guys that are better human beings than they are coaches, and they're both great coaches. And I've tried to take that to my staff. I've tried to integrate that in my program. And we may be different in the way we do some things, but man, there's so many positives to take from those guys.
Coach, my last one before I turn it over to you is this. You, a minute ago, you're kind of known for you're getting your team to play extremely hard and execute. How does that happen? I mean, it just doesn't happen. How do you get your players to play so hard and execute so well?
Well, I think it all starts with, again, I go back to a lot of the coaches I've had. The one thing that I tell everybody about successful coaches, they're extremely consistent. And there's no doubt that I work very hard to try to be that same way. And it could be a little thing as simple as, I'm never going to allow you to catch on the wing. And all of a sudden it's Tuesday and I'm not quite have the energy that I've had in the past and start allowing that. If you do that, your players will that'll become them. And so, I try to be that guy every day, both on and off the court. Consistency is something that, I remind myself every day before I step on the floor. Let's be the best coach we can be today. And then I think that I've always been a process guy. I've never chased winning. And I understand that winning is important, that we all have to win to keep our jobs. That's the time in this world that we're in. But for me, it's always been about the process. And we won 12 games last year, and it was an enjoyable team to coach because we simply just kept getting better. And I knew that it was laying the foundation for our process. We weren't taking any shortcuts. We were establishing our culture, and lo and behold, this year happened. So I've never varied from that. I've always been a culture guy. I've always been a process guy. And then the wins have taken care of themselves. Some nights, and I go back, Tom, my second year at SFA, we played Utah in the first round of the tournament, and we were a great offensive team, and we have a night the ball doesn't go in. And yet that team had Jakob Pertl and DeLon Wright and Kuzma, and they were loaded. And with 42 seconds to go, we're down 2 and got a great look at a 3. And when I looked up after the game, they had a couple more points than we did, but I couldn't be any more prouder of our team because of the process. And the process allowed us and gave us a chance to win. And that was playing hard every day. And I've never varied for that. Sometimes the other team has more points, but most of the time it works out for you if you stay true to who you are and what your beliefs are, and then stay consistent.
Coach, I'm going to turn over to you, and your topic is spread offense. So I'm going to turn over to you. I'll monitor the questions and answers, and then I'll interrupt you once in a while. But while you're getting set up, what do you tell your incoming freshmen about the best way to prepare for playing at the next level so they can be ready to go the first day of practice? What do you tell them?
Well, again, and everything is, we have 2 rules, and both of them are very hard for teenagers and young people. And the first one's real simple, just be on time. The second one is listen, and that pertains to every facet of life. And the one thing that if you can listen, you'll learn much quicker in practice. And our practices are hard. We get after it. We go. And yet, if you don't listen and you don't pay attention, it's something I'm really dialed into really quick in practice. I try to be very observant of everybody, just whether they're on the sideline, and then immediately bring to the attention of that young guy if he's not paying attention. So, we're going to go hard. We're going to expect that. We're going to demand that. And if you listen, you can make your life a lot easier.
Before you start, you've got a lot of friends listening in today. A lot of them are asking some funny questions, but I'll just let those go, okay, Coach?
I can only imagine some of the questions. If you said they're friends, I can only imagine.
So I'll let you go to work, Coach. I'll interrupt once in a while. Thanks again.
You bet. Again, spread offense is something that we've had a lot of success with over the course of my career. And, it's something that is really an old school offense. I did a clinic in Florida when I was a coach at Stephen F. And one of the coaches asked me where I got it. And I originally came across it from Johnny Orr when he was the coach at Iowa State. And I said, man, this is really hard to guard and play against. And Dana Altman took a version of it and tweaked it and had a lot of success when he was at Creighton. And, I kept messing around with it. And really, we ran it a little bit when I was an assistant at Western. But when I got the job at Daytona is when I really started tweaking it and working with it. And this high school coach said, he goes, I've been running it for 40 years. And the one thing that I can tell you is I got it long before Johnny Orr, and he goes, "If you ever heard of the name Hinkle?" And I said, "As in Fieldhouse?" And he said, "Yeah." He goes, "I heard Coach Hinkle speak in the '50s, and he introduced me to spread." So it's an old school offense that is been very good, and it was great for us at Stephen F. When we got started. We were undersized. It was more about passing. The 3 years I was there, we had the fewest ball screens in the country, not for any other reason other than that we weren't great at them. So spread became very effective. It's an offense that is all about player movement and ball movement simultaneously happening. And when you get that, it's very difficult to guard. It's an offense that we found over the years is very hard to prepare for opponents. And it's one that gives you as a coach a lot of creativity and a lot of ability to tweak to your personnel. I've had really, really big teams. It's been a great high-low offense. I've had teams that were elite driving teams. The spacing is fabulous for that. And then I've had teams that could really shoot it, and it becomes really, really good offense from that aspect of it. So I'll jump in here. I'll stop this in different segments so you guys can ask some questions. But as we move forward here, there's some slides, and then there's some actual game action. And here's the initial positioning of spread, and you know, it's a two-guard front, which I really like. And we talk about the four perimeter guys, and those are all interchangeable pieces. It's one of the things we've looked for in recruiting is guys who can play different positions. We'll eventually get to where all five guys can play all five spots, and we could put a point guard in the pinch. So that's what that set looks like. It's very important. We put X's on the floor. They never leave our practice court. They never leave there during the year. The two slots are just that. We kind of keep them a little bit wider than maybe that diagram shows, but not maybe by a step. And then the free throw line extended. I will say this, the free throw line extended X is very important. We call it fight for the X. We want to catch the ball there and not too far off that X. And I'll explain a little more about that as we get into our cutters here. But and then the pinch post is right on the nail. We tell them to straddle the nail. And so that's the initial setup as we keep moving forward. And then this is what we call first cutter. Now we practice our cutters every single day. And it's one of the things that's very important. You can see in this diagram where the first cutter is cutting to the rim, we will put an X right there. That means they have to touch that. And you can see when one passes the ball to two on the wing, that first cutter is sprinting his cut. It's one of the things we demand is they sprint their cuts. And we want our cutters to move faster than the defense, and sprinting is the best way to do that. It also will force X5 to have to support and help, and it's something that we're really, really big on. Your players, your team, and especially on the wings, have got to catch up, and they've got to know where they're looking. And that first cutter is a big, big piece of that. So you'll see some clips here. If the five-man can slide a step or half a step anyway to back screen, we allow that, but we sure don't want to commit fouls by doing that. So here's some action here. Again, this is from Stephen F. Austin in the NCAA tournament, and you'll see us the cuts here. We've got a little different lineup. That's our five-man. And your team will become extremely hesitant about passing to start with from the wing. when they start passing the ball from the wing, I never get mad in practice when we turn the ball over throwing a first cutter. I want them to throw it. I want them to be aggressive. When they start learning to throw it, and we try to teach them, even if you see the back of the defender's head, you have to throw the ball. It may look like he's guarded, but he doesn't see the ball, he's open. And this will become really addictive for your guys. They'll love it. We were at SFA, we were 1, 2, and 9 in the country in assist. Like right there is a great example. I'm going to rewind that real quick. A great example. The guy's got his head turned. He looks like he's guarded, but he can't see the ball. And we throw it and get a layup. But we've always been a real high assist team. And then we've always been a team that has a lot of points in the paint. And we haven't done that with a lot of post entries. It's always been about cutting. I think it's really important that we talk about what we call the third side. We always want to get the ball swung. And when we do that, we scored a very, very high clip on those cuts. One of the things we look for in scouting is the other team's worst defender. Especially you high school coaches, there's always a bad defender on the court. And a lot of times that defender is the other team's best offensive player. So we try to pick on him. We make it an emphasis to pick on that guy. Let's run the offense until we can make so-and-so make a mistake. And that's a lot of fun to do that when the other coach has to leave a bad guy in because they think he can make a basket at the other end. So we literally scout that. I'm going to go through here to the second cutter, and then I'll stop it and we'll answer some questions. The first cutter, after he cuts, obviously it's the 4-man in this case, is out to the corner. The 5-man goes, and we call it, we want to straddle the elbow, as we call it. And he gets there as soon as the 4-man's cuts off of him. And he's not necessarily trying to screen, but the 3-man runs right at him and then breaks his cut off. And so that angle's a little bit more to the block than we like. We like it a little more to the rim, but we always go low. And one of the reasons we go low on this is to force the defense towards the baseline. One of the premises of spread is to flatten the defense, and cutting low does that. We have some sets that we can run to really take advantage of it if they really start playing low. But this also becomes a very, very good post-up option, and one that we look for because there's really very little help if they front or get on the top side. If they play behind, we draw a lot of fouls out of that. So we always post. The 5-man, after he sets this screen or comes into this area, we call it a top foot pivot. He will take his foot closest to half court and open up, pivoting towards half court. So he creates just a little bit of space, and I'll get into that with the 2-man game here in a minute. But here's what second cutter post-ups look like. Again, and you can see the front where we throw over the top because, and again, everything becomes a read on how they play the post. Again, first cutter, second cutter. We post guards. We've had big wings. We post guards a lot. So it doesn't really matter where we get them from, where we get the post-ups from. Again, and we practice these passes every single day, and we work on those cuts every single day. It's usually one of the first 5 minutes of practice things that we do on one end of the court is first and second cutter and make those passes and work on all of those passes. Tom, questions?
Yep, I got a couple for you, Coach. You ready?
You bet.
Let's see here. Well, my first question, Coach, they're going to ask about these diagrams. Are you comfortable sending them to us, or have your video coordinator send them to us and we can send them out to the people on here, or do you want them to contact you?
No, what I will do is at the end of this, I'll give everybody a couple email addresses.
Perfect.
And then we can get all this stuff to them. We have everything in a diagram form.
Perfect.
And they can get it that way.
First, how has this offense evolved while you've been at Illinois?
Yeah, it's been different because my first year we ran it almost exclusively, and we weren't very big. We were 6'7" in the post, and yet we were number 2 in the Big Ten in points in the paint, and we had a team that was not a very good shooting team, and yet this gave us an opportunity to be effective offensively because we got closer to the basket. We cut, we scored a lot, and out of this with layups basically and cutters. I think cutting is one of the lost arts in basketball. I think you can break a defense down and force a different rotation or a different tag by cutting. And when you start to think about you yourself as a coach, how many times do you practice defending cuts that come from the weak side and the weak side perimeter especially? A lot of times we may handle a opposite block to strong side block cut, but we don't do it from the perimeter. And when those cuts happen with speed, and you become a really relevant passer, man, this stuff becomes really, really a challenge to guard. So here we've done it. Now we have a 7-foot, 290-pound center. So our emphasis has changed just a little bit, and we've played high-low a little more. We look at a lot of post-ups for him that happen basically off what I'm going to get to next is the two-man game. But yeah, it's a different deal. If you've got a 5-man who can really shoot, how they play that becomes a little bit different. I like putting shooters in there. That's why I get to the point where in this offense, 5 guys can play at any spot. You've seen some of these clips. I put a point guard in there. How many coaches teach their point guards how to play post ball screen defense? A lot don't. Where they've actually got to hedge or switch or do something like that. So there are a lot of interchangeable pieces, and it has evolved a lot, and we continue to tinker with it all the time.
Where's the best opportunity for a player to drive come from within the flow of the offense?
Well, there's going to be 2 areas. We'll get a ton of drives from the wing to the baseline side, especially on a quick reversal. One of the things that we look to do is throw a lot of skips. And if you'll go back to that, think about that original, the original setup where 2-guard front, we'll skip the ball from one of the slots to the opposite wing and cut a lot. And when you can do that in the middle of a possession, you're going to get a lot of layups or a lot of quick drives because you're going to get closeouts. The other piece is, and I'll get to this in a minute, we call the fill spot, comes off this next option in 2-man game. And that happens in a slot area towards the middle of the floor. So, there's ample driving areas. We work a lot on driving the ball in this and getting to our spots. We've got specific spots we get to all the time, anytime there's a baseline drive or a middle drive. And that's something else that we work on daily.
So how else do you teach your cutters other than sprint your spot? Are there any teaching points you give to the wings? Or the
Yeah,
cutters?
always look for the pass and always throw a hand out. And give that passer a target. We always want to try to make eye contact with the passer, so we're always looking for it. There's nothing more upsetting as a coach than a guy comes wide open, the passer throws it, and the guy's got his head down, not looking for it. So we just teach that. We demand that happens. And again, certain things happen with the second cutter depending on if they front the way we try to post up as we throw both hands up in the air so we don't push off. Yeah, it's not as complicated as I don't want to make it complicated. It's simple. Sprint the cut, look, throw the hand, and keep your eyes on the passer.
This next one, Coach, this will be the last one. I'll let you go back to work, and I'll stop you later on. I'm assuming this offense to use is if undersized and playing a very aggressive man-to-man defense. Does this matter if your team is slower and not too athletic to run this offense?
No,
we ran this.
It's even better for that.
When I was in high school, so.
Yeah, it's even better for that. If I was a high school coach, I'd run nothing but this. And it doesn't matter what your type of team is, athletic, not athletic, shooters, drivers, big, really good post guys. You have unlimited opportunities in this to do this. And again, I'm one of those guys that you can be as creative as you want to be as a coach with this, and understand sometimes, when I had Thomas walk up at Stephen F. Austin, we had all kinds of post-up opportunities. We had isolation opportunities. I got to Oklahoma State and I had Juwan Evans. Man, we became a team that was driving it. We were bringing him off two-man game. We were really effective. We spaced the floor and created opportunities for him to drive it. So it's got a little bit of everything in it. And don't limit yourself by what your team is. You can adjust this any way you want and become good at it. And again, the whole key, teaching guys to pass.
Last one, Coach. Do the cutters get in a way of some of the other wing drives?
It's a read. You'll have an idea. You'll gain an idea real quick when a guy has the ability to drive or the opportunity. If we see that, if we see a drive on a skip, our guys know just kind of get out of the way. We get to a drift spot. We call the free throw line extended the window. We get to those spots, but no, and I think one of the things that you can control as a coach is in practice. We run this with no dribble. We run this where anytime there's a skip, we want to drive it. Anytime there's days that I may say, okay, only you two guys can score. Or I will come back and I'll say, okay, we have to get it to the third or fourth side before we can score. So you can kind of emphasize out of this what you want, drives being one of them. And then guys learn to play out of that.
Coach, I'll leave you alone, get back to work, and I'll butt in a little bit. Hey,
Yep.
You can go as long as you'd like just because there's no one behind you. So if you need to go a little extra, don't be afraid. Thanks for doing it.
Great. This next part is after our two cutters have gone through. This is called two-man game. And this is something that is the meat and potatoes of this. If you watch anything of Tex Winter, the Lakers, back in the day, the Bulls, this was a part of the triangle that was really effective. This is a part that we had, we scored at about 61, 62% of the time at Oklahoma State on. We were great at it at SFA, and we've been really good on it here. After the 5-man sets the screen at the elbow, again, I mentioned he sets what we call a top foot pivot, and he opens up. Anytime that we can skip from 2 to 5, we want to do that. If it's not there, we have to play through the top. And what I mean by the top, we have to play through the 1-man. If we can play 2 to 5, as the ball's in the air, we want the 1-man sprinting off that as quickly as we can. We want to try to create as much advantage with the understanding that the 1-man's defender, X1, is probably jumped somewhere toward the ball and is going to be behind this play trailing from the get-go. If we throw it to the top to 1, we prefer to pass it to the 5. It doesn't always have to be that way. You can dribble off as well. But what we teach our 5-man is that top foot pivot, open up. And again, a lot of opportunities to shoot the ball if X5 is supporting on the cutters. That's why it's so important to sprint your cuts, because everything we do in this is predicated off X5 having to really guard a lot of area and support on the cuts. Young man we had at SFA was an elite shooter from here, and so people couldn't help on the cuts. You can put really good drivers in here at UC. 5-man can catch it, rip drive. You can see 5-man can catch it. And if the 3-man's defender is a second cutter fronted, we can play high-low. A lot of different options right there. But if 2 throws to 5, 1 is coming off this, we're going to try to hand the ball off as often as we can and create what we call the 2-man game. With the 1-man going downhill trying to score, we get a lot of layups out of this. If not, 1-man's rule is to get the ball to the level of the block and then do what we call a drag dribble. And that drag dribble is 2 dribbles to back out to the 3-point line. All the way the 5-man rolls down the lane line, looking for a lob possibly, or looking then for a post up on a drag dribble. So here's what this looks like. Again, and here's another diagram, and let me back up here. Another diagram to show you how that looks. And again, it's to the level of the block. We want to try to get it as deep as we can to flatten that defense and force them to the baseline. Here's some live game clips. Again, just an easy layup, just simple 2 game. You watched, if you ever watched the Lakers back in the day, here's the skip, 2-man game, right at the rim. We've also gotten fouled a boatload in this. This has been an offense that's created a tremendous amount of fouls. Again, we've got a wing in there now. That's actually a very skilled 4-man shooting it. He goes under, we can shoot it. Again, just a lot of opportunities depending on how teams guard it to score. So there's a ton of things off that. How we start practice every day is with the cutters at one end. We'll have the group broken up into 2 groups. And at the other end, they're just going to work on 2-man game. And 2-man game on Monday maybe we're going to throw the skip, come off, and finish through a pad. On Tuesday, we may be, okay, we're going to play through the top and dribble off and make the right read. And maybe we're going to enter it to the post and play out of a post up. We will work on some aspect of that differently every day, so that these become second nature and the reads become very, very easy for guys to see. So I'm going to jump into the next entry here because there are 3 entries we talk about a lot in terms of no matter what the defense does, we can always get into offense. And this next entry is a high post entry. And it is exactly what it says. We're going to enter the ball to the high post. Now, think about overplays. We couldn't enter the ball to the wing. So obviously, coaches, there's going to be easy opportunities to back cut out of this. We look at this as a great opportunity to get a layup. And overplays are something that teams will eventually get out of doing against you when you run this. But in most case scenarios, I like to move the ball from one side of the court to the other. So in a perfect world, I'd have 1 throw the ball to 4. So the 5-man, if he wasn't directly behind, gets pinned on the other side. He'd be on the 1-man side. As the ball goes into the high post, our rule is whoever throws the ball to the high post always goes low. And they basically sprint and they dive down a little bit deeper, right into that charged circle area or a little bit underneath. And it's amazing. You can get a layup just on a speed cut off this. 5-man, just drop a little bounce pass. We have some post-up options out of this as well. I'll get into those a little bit later. Here's the option that allows us to get into flow and into our offense. We will have the 2-man and the 3-man. Their job is to replace 1 and 4 up top. And the 5-man's job is to hit the first one that comes open. And the 4 and the 1 cross underneath, and they fill back out to the wing. And again, there's a backdoor opportunity out of that as well. But let's say, the 5-man hits the top spot, and now we can create offense. And I'll show you what that looks like right here. So 5 hits 3. We look 100% of the time for the skip pass. Okay, that could be 3 to 4. And again, the defense is going to be up guarding the ball, a quick skip, and now we sprint that first cut and we get a lot of layups. Coaches, we get a ton of layups out of this. If the 4-man gets stuck and is a little slow getting out, we allow 3 to throw it to the 2-man, and then 2-man throw the skip to the 1, and then he cuts. And again, a lot of layup opportunities out of this offense, out of this entry. Here's what this looks like, and there's some we run it in the middle of a possession. We call it change the entry. Again, here's the cuts. Quick skip, and we got a jump shot out of that one. All this does is teams get out of the pattern. It's a little something different. There's the skip that led to a jump shot. So it's just a different way to get in the offense. Once the ball gets back to a wing, we're back into our cutters. So we've got some sets we run off that, and you can see the ball's hardly ever hitting the floor, except off 2-man game. And we get wide open. We're getting wide open shots because of ball movement. Let me back up here. Okay, I'll go through this last entry and then I'll stop and answer any questions you guys might have on the entries. The last one, this happens to be One of my favorite post-up opportunities out of it. It's a real simple action. Again, you've got an overplay. You can't get the ball to the wing. And it's just a real simple dribble entry. Any of those perimeter guys can dribble enter. It doesn't matter. We teach it to them. This just happens to be our point guard dribbling our 2 out. We always signal that with a hand wave or a push. The 2-man back cuts, we don't throw it for this reason. The 4-man and the 3-man are going to be cutting. As the 2-man goes, he is sprinting to the opposite block. Okay? And 4-man's cutting like a first cutter. 3-man's going to be right on top of him pretty much. And the 3-man's rule as a second cutter is always has to post up. He has to post up. There's a lot of post ups here, guys, out of this option. And when you've got a big wing, especially, that can be effective down here, you've got to make him look at that. It also occupies his man, his defender. So as that happens, 5 has gone to the nail, or excuse me, to the elbow. And as soon as the 3-man is off of him, he is setting a down screen for 2. Okay, so this is a little pin down action. And we look jump shot there, and or then 5 leg whips and post up. So we've got basically the side isolated and cleared out, and it's a great opportunity for a quick post up. And again, we'll get to a point where we can run this with anybody. We just mix it up here right in the middle of possession. They know dribble entry. We don't get a very good pin down, but it gets us a wide open jump shot. Again, really a good action against any switching that could occur. You can get the mismatch right away. There's an overplay by West Virginia, leads to a dribble entry. All right, I'm going to stop it right here because here's the back side of this. We don't get the post up. As soon as 3 back dribbles or holds the ball, that tells the post up man, number 11 in this case, to lift and go set a flat ball screen. So that now we are basically playing right back into our 2-man game. We have that here. We knew how West Virginia was playing. So this was just a short roll for us to open up. We hit him. Now we've got advantages on the backside. You can see we've got perfect spacing on the backside. 22 in the drift, 12 at the window, and then walk up spaced in an overload situation where they can't get to it. Okay. Any questions about any of those things?
I got 2 before Troy's got some. Does this work against zone?
Yes. All it does is you can see it plays into a natural overload. And I would ask you that to email our office, because I won't get into it here. The spacing will change just a little bit, but it's a great overload offense. And you can create a lot of bad rotations for a zone, especially putting a shooter as a second cutter, and then just reversing the ball off 2-man game causes a lot of matchup problems. So, but I'll ask whoever answered that question. Yes, you can. It's very good against it. You can run some of the sets against zone, and that'll be something that I won't get in depth with here. But you need to email the office, and we can get you what that looks like.
Coach, you can also mention that Coach Underwood's done the spread offense video when he was at Stephen F. Austin. He's also done it at Illinois. So if you go to Championship Productions, you can see everything Coach has ever done.
Correct.
Troy, go ahead.
We got A couple two-part questions. The first one was, what drills do you use to help install this offense? And the other one was, what drills do you use to hit on these passes that came in earlier in your speed?
Yeah, again, and we do this thing in three segments in practice. We will start out every single day with the two cutters, working on cutters, and two-man game. And that's very short because that's just simply the passing and the meat and potatoes of this. We'll also have a segment in practice later where we'll run it dummy and just get the pattern of it in terms of mixing up your entries, mixing up your high post entry, mixing up your dribble entry in the middle of a possession. I'll tell them what we're looking for, and let's get so-and-so on the third side and whatever it is. And so they get in the habit of that. And then we also obviously have a 5-on-5 segment because it does get different when you put a defense out there. And then there are segments in practice where we will break down an emphasis. If we want to work on the dribble entry post up, for example, and we'll spend 5 minutes at one end working just on dribble entry, the post up. And then if we want to, on the other end, we may be working on the high post, skip, first cutter layup. So we incorporate all those drills like that into practice. Again, that's something that, as Tom mentions on the videos, you'll see us actually in practice putting this in and a lot of the drills. We've tweaked them over the years as well to fit our personnel or our emphasis, but we work on them in three segments and over the course of time, it's something I tell coaches all the time. You need to have a little patience with it, especially the passing portions. But you have to encourage guys and players to make those passes. They'll have a real tendency to want to break things off and dribble. And it's your job as a coach to get them to make it to the third, fourth side, not do it with dribbles, and to get them to buy into how much fun it is to cut and score layups and how frustrated the opponents get when you hurt them with that. So, but we've got it all on film if you need it, and like I said, all these championship production segments are on those videos as well.
Then the next question was, what do you do when the defense packs the paint to defend the cutters?
Yeah, it's great. It's great. We welcome it. There's some different counters and some different sets. I'm not going to get into all those sets. With that, again, the natural tendency is when teams get really tight and packed in is to try to slow your cuts. And all of a sudden you become really stagnant and you've got to fight against that a little bit. But what it does is it's going to force them to still have to move. It's going to force them to still have to close out. And you can take advantage of those closeouts at any point. And again, we've seen just about everything there is to do defensively against it. And ball movement will always, and ball reversals will always win out. Whatever the scheme is, you can pick on people, but you can also always know that you can win out by moving the ball quicker than they can move.
And then the other person sent in, what do you do when they're denying the first two cutters?
Yeah, we're going to eventually get layups. And one of the things that we try to do, we call it just simple dribble flow. And we may start our offense with that, where the guy who has the ball up top just dribbles to the wing, and it could be a simple dribble handoff and then a pin down on the other side to move the defense just a little. And again, that's one of the advantages of a two-guard front, is getting the ball from one spot to the others is pretty easy. We're eventually, if they're going to deny, we're going to get some sort of back cut if we're cutting hard. And again, it's one of the things I like about the high post entry options and the dribble entry options is they can't prevent you from running offense.
Coach, will you have any kind of set play, or I'm sorry, any drills in your handouts that you could provide for installation of this offense?
Yeah, and again, I think it's easiest if I just we haven't broken down like that into our sets. I've probably over the years probably got 40 different actions based on counters, and I think it's a couple of things that I'll mention right here is as a coach. And when you're running spread, I start every game with a script based on how I think they're going to play it. And so I know what I want to do. And, but my first thing as a coach is I want to see how they're playing, how X5 is playing our cutters. So that's the first thing I'm reading. Are they staying up? Are they showing and dropping back, playing really soft? The second thing I want to see is how they play the pass from the wing to X5. Are they going to allow us to skip that? And so I want to pay attention to that because they could be denying the five man with X5, or they could take the man who's at top and set him at the free throw line. However that is, I'm going to scout that. And then the last thing is how are they guarding two-man game? And what I mean by that is how is X5 going to handle that? Are they flat hedging? Are they switching? Are they trying to hard hedge it and trap it, or whatever that is? And those are the three to start with, bang bang things that I'm looking for as a coach, and then I can counter off of that. And there's some games I may have 3 plays that I want to start the game with, and we never have to do anything else. But there's other games that I need to get a wingman into the pinch because we've got a matchup, or it's a really bad defender, and we've got back screens for 5 if he hugs, or if X5's hugging the 5-man. We've got different actions we do if teams switch a lot that we use as different entries. So all of that we have, but again, it's probably easier to get with Tom on and it's in all those videos, and we have some of it obviously that we've tweaked over the years, but there's a lot of things to do. There's a lot of sets. And again, I probably create 5 or 6 new ones every year based on what my team needs.
Coach, I'm going to try to make this one make sense. After wing looks at the second cutter, they take away the first man and the 5-man. Do you have a wing dribble the
Yes.
1-man out and wrap the 5-man for a potential lob to the top?
So we call it middle drive. And the drive is from the wing to the nail. And what we do is we take the 5-man and he takes 1 step up toward the guy who's up top, who's going to be in 2-man game, and we set a flare. And if he goes under, we get a shot and pass it. If he goes over the top, he wraps it to the rim. And if we can obviously make that pass over the top, we do. If not, we do what we call a drag dribble. And the wingman will bounce the ball back toward the top of the key. And after the 5-man sets the flare, he turns it into a middle ball screen, basically like 2-man. It's another way to get into 2-man game. So there's no way they can deny both.
Coach, this is the last question for you. Coach, how do you feel you can get into this after your primary break has failed? Also, do you have a dribble handoff entry? Yes.
I just mentioned the dribble handoff entry. We call it dribble flow. It's just the top guy dribble handoff at the wing. We do it up top some, where the 2 guys, whoever's in the 2 top spots, can ball screen. We can dribble handoff. All those spots are interchangeable. Those are basically to your liking, whatever you want them to be. But it doesn't matter. Anybody can play from any spot on the perimeter, and you can dribble flow. You can ball screen up top and change sides of the floor. We do a lot of that as well. What was the first part of that, Tom?
If out of the break, if you have a problem getting into it out of the break.
No, and again, we run as well as anybody in the country. So, I'm a big believer in trying to score in the first 7 seconds of a shot clock. Our wings are running wide. When we don't have anything, our wings just our corner guys lift to the wings. We throw our 5-man at the nail, and then because the positions are interchangeable, we're into offense pretty quick. And I'm more of a primary break guy than I am a secondary break guy. But with us having a 30-second shot clock, we can't be dilly-dallying too long with trying to do too many things in transition.
Coach, unbelievable. Thanks for everything. Remember, if you need something from them, you can contact their office, or you can look at Championship Productions, and they've got videos from Stephen F. Austin and Illinois that you could look at. Coach, unbelievable. Thanks for everything. Troy, you got anything before we adjourn?
No, just thanks for your time, Brad. Take care.
Thank
Stay
you, guys.
safe, Coach. Thanks.
Everybody stay safe and appreciate you.
You too. Thanks for your time. Have a great day.
Thank you.
45 minutes. We got Coach Howard from LaSalle on offense. Have a great day. We'll see you soon.